What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Winged Octopus. This is Tyler here alongside Greg and Ryan. How you guys doing? It's been a while.
Oh, I'm doing fantastic.
It has been a little bit, but we are back, and we have an exciting episode today.
Yes, we do. Greg, I just want you to shout out our sponsors, and we'll get right into it because we got some short time. We got some playoff hockey to watch.
Yeah, so since the beginning of the Civil War, our sponsor has been Howie's Hockey Tape. Howie's makes some really awesome stuff, guys. They're a Michigan-made product. They make stick wax. They have laces. They've got tape. They've got everything. If you go to howieshockeytape.com or .ca for our fellows in Canada and use the promo code WINGEDO, you will receive 10% off of your purchase. So buy local and buy Howie's Hockey Tape. So that was a pretty sufficient promo. I got that one going. So what we're going to be doing today, guys, is we haven't done one in a little over a month, I think, is we're going to be doing a mailbag. So we went out and we got some questions from Facebook and we got some questions from Twitter. We get pretty good responses when we ask for questions, but we could always use more to pick from. So if you think of any, you can leave them to us at any time and we will get to them in our next mailbags whenever we do them. So what I'll do is I'll read a question and then I will name a person. You start, then the other person can give their thoughts on it, and then I'll wrap it up before asking the next question. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. So we will start from a question from Facebook from James Koppel, who is asking, who is winning the draft lottery this year? So here's your fun pick'em game. We will start with Ryan on who is winning the draft lottery this year.
Oh my God! If it's the Chicago Blackhawks, I'm burning everything down. If we're gonna go based off who we think is gonna get it, I for some reason see Buffalo knocking this one out of the park and bringing it home. We just going with the top pick on what our gut feeling is gonna be.
Yeah, just your gut feeling on who do you think will win the lottery.
I kind of see Buffalo getting it. I know they've got the top 3 odds. I just don't know why, but for some reason I see them getting it, bringing in Dahlin to anchor the defense with Eichel up front, and then just kind of wreaking havoc. But like I said, as long as it's not Chicago, I really don't care who gets it.
Yeah, I was just going to say I think it's probably going to be a team like Vancouver that ends up winning it. Buffalo is a good team that could end up getting it. Detroit also another team. I could even see a team like Montreal end up with Rasmus Dahlin. So, I mean, that's really kind of where I would look.
Yeah, I could see both of those, but I think the fun one right now would be if Calgary got the number 1 pick, it would go to the New York Islanders.
Oh, that'd be absolutely – that'd wreak havoc on everything.
What trade is that from? Oh, the Hennick one, right?
Yeah, if you go on Tankathon and you look, if Calgary wins, that pick goes to the Islanders. If St. Louis wins, that pick goes to Philadelphia. So,
oh, God.
Yeah,
wow.
There could be some really weird stuff happen. It's really, really low. I think Calgary's got like a 2% chance of getting the first overall pick. I'll tell you, though, out of the 10 times, I'll sim 10 in a row, and the Wings land in the top 3 out of 10 times. So we've got a pretty good shot of at least getting top 3. So we can be hopeful.
We're going to end up with Quinn Hughes. That's what
I don't know. If we go any higher than 7, I don't think we take Quinn Hughes. There's no reason.
No, there'll be other options. I love Quinn Hughes and what he can bring, but I think there's still other options that can be just as equally efficient for what they have back there. Quite honestly, anyone they draft that's going to be a top 10 defenseman is going to be better than kind of what they have right now. So I'll take it.
So we're going to go on to question 2. Question 2 is from Mary Horton on Facebook. If Detroit gets the number 1 pick, do they take Dahlin or Svechnikov, or do they trade to get them both? Now, if you can trade to get them both and someone's dumb enough to do that, you do it. That would be absolutely insane. But no one short of the ghost of Chiarelli would do that. So, if we're getting the first overall pick, you're taking Dahlin hands down. He is a generational defenseman. Nick Lidstrom said that he is better than him at that age. So when you have one of the best defensemen to ever put on skates saying that this kid is better than him when he was 18, that's insane. So you take that kid, he's a once in a lifetime. He steps right into your lineup and he instantly makes your D-line 100 times better. Tyler, what I think I know, but who are you taking?
Well, I mean Rasmus Dahlin, but if I end up at number 2, I might take Phil Zadina over Svechnikov. I didn't like what I seen of Svechnikov in the World Juniors. I've seen some highlights, and yeah, he's good, but I like Zadina's game more.
So that's interesting you say that because North American Skater final ranking came out. It goes 1 Svechnikov, 2 Brady Tkachuk, 3 Philip Zadina. So
Tkachuk could end up in the top 3 then.
Yep, they're saying that if it drafted now, it would probably go Dahlin, Svechnikov, Tkachuk.
Okay.
As of right now.
So
Ryan,
where's Zadina ranked there? 4th?
Zadina would be 4th. Yep.
Oh wow.
And then Bouchard, I believe.
Okay.
Ryan, what are your thoughts?
To touch on the trade part, I don't see that happen whatsoever. But Dahlin, I would have to say, if the Wings don't take him number 1, that'd just blow my mind for the help they need on the back end. Yeah, if they can work some contracts out these next 2 years, they might have a chance to go for a top tier defenseman in free agency. But they'd be stupid not to take a guy like Dahlin number 1. If they get number 2, 3, any of those guys that you just mentioned, yeah, I'd take. I don't care. It's like I mentioned before. It turns into the NFL draft at that point and take the next best available player.
All right, yeah.
There's a lot of people are like, well, you get to the point where you get those high picks, but now you need to get them right, because anybody can get high picks. It's about getting them right, and
yeah. Look at Edmonton.
Guys too.
Yep.
Edmonton had 3 top picks in 5 years and nothing. I mean, not nothing. They were all.
A lot of those guys ended up becoming impact players. I mean,
they were all good players. They just had no chemistry between them, and they had bad coaching.
I was gonna say that's more organizational and management than I think the players that they were bringing in. Look at the roster they had this year, nearly identical to last year, and they didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, they cracked out.
Awful. That's why.
All right, so we're going to go on to our next question from Chris Wetton. Will Holland make any sweet trades to rid the Wings of lengthy contracts this offseason so that new kids can play? Ryan, I'll let you start this one.
God, I hope so. I don't know what he may do. What I pray that he'll do is offload a guy like Glendening. I know he's a great role player. He's a little bit cheaper, but we have enough replacements in Grand Rapids, like a Turgeon. If once he gets back to good health, he can take over that role. You need to get rid of a Helm contract. Nyquist, he's got 1 more year. He could be a rental, but I don't see him trying to move that one at all. You need to look at guys like a DeKaiser. If he can sweeten the deal up on that one, that'd be the one that I could see him actually managing to get out of town. Advocator, I don't think he can sway that one unless he is just fondling something. But really the only one I could see him possibly moving out, other than maybe Glendening because he's a cheap, low, bottom 6 guy, would be DeKaiser. But even then, with that salary, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah. A lot of people say they want DeKaiser for about $1 million less than what he's making.
Yep.
Tyler, what do you think Holland does? You think he makes any off-season trades?
Yeah, I think he ends up dealing Danny DeKaiser. I think he ends up dealing DeKaiser to free up some space for a guy like Philip Hronek or Hicketts or one of those guys down in Grand Rapids. Or even if you believe the article that came out a few weeks ago of Cholowski end up playing in Detroit next year. And then the other thing is, what was the other part of that? I'm sorry.
Do you think he rids the Wings of any contracts so that new kids can play?
Oh yeah, okay. I think, like I said, I think De Kaiser could be gone, but you're not getting rid of Abdelkader. You're not getting rid of, Cronwall. You're not getting rid of Eriksson. You're not getting rid of Zetterberg or any of those like big contract. Nielsen is another guy that nobody wants these players. And so you're just going to kind of have to be patient. And, at some point, some of these guys are going to get hurt, end up retiring. But like, you're going to have to just wait it out and play with the young kids. And hopefully they, if you get enough of them up, they end up, building chemistry and doing something similar to what the Devils have done this year. But until then, like I said, it's just going to be patience and very mediocre hockey for a few years in Detroit.
Yeah, I think that you could get rid of someone like Glendening and De Kaiser pretty easy. Not De Kaiser easily. Glendening you could probably get rid of pretty easily. I actually think they'll get rid of Nick Jensen and Xavier Ouellette.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Helm's another guy too.
Darren Helm, yeah, I think though he'd be easier to move if he was a little cheaper. But I think Ouellette's gone. I think Jensen's gone. Holland did say in an interview that he wants to give two definitely a shot next year, two kids that didn't play this year, but potentially 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
To give 4 to 5 kids that didn't play this year a shot next year, that he'd have to do a lot of contract magic to move stuff around.
Yeah, but define a shot. What does a shot mean? Because Dominic Turgeon got a shot this year, and that was like, 4 or 5 games.
No, he was referring to like on the roster,
like legitimately making the roster is what he's talking about, and
so something similar to what Larkin got.
Yes.
Yeah, so Rasmussen's probably going to be one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Hronik is probably going to be one of the two, and he specifically said kids you did not see this year.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to do something. He's got to be talking about moving some players. Just hopefully he can pull the trigger on it because we know he's staying. We know Blashill's staying, so he might as well get started real quick. It seems like Illich isn't too happy.
Yeah,
so
he also made the comment too that I think it was on the 97-1 20-minute sit down he had with those guys, is he's looking to make trades. He doesn't know what those are going to be necessarily. If it's a 1-for-1, I know he says it the last several years, the hockey trade, but he's exploring it because he knows what's starting to come up and how deep this draft is. That they've got 2 picks in the first round. We keep kind of dancing around that fact. There could be 2 guys very well trying to make the roster this year and then pushing strong in the AHL if they don't make the roster.
Yeah, and he also mentioned that he was asked about buyouts, and he said that's an option, but I haven't talked to anyone about buyouts yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he could potentially buy out someone like Jonathan Eriksson. He's not going to buy out Cronwall. There's too much loyalty there and too much veteran presence. But he could buy out a guy like Eriksson who would almost have no penalty against the cap, very, very little.
Mm-hmm.
So
that'd be his best option.
That would be the best move he's made since trading the Pavel Datsyuk contract to Arizona.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We will move on to our next question, however, from Mike Taylor. Thoughts on moving Zetterberg to the second line? And Tyler, you go ahead and start with the moving Zetterberg to the second line, because I think it's a good idea, and I think it's something that's going to happen next season.
Second line? How about third line? I
guess
really, Zetterberg's getting old. He's not fleet of foot anymore. I would honestly even think about putting him on the wing, where he doesn't have to go in the corners and dig for pucks, and he doesn't have to, be the first guy back or the third guy back. And I would even think about third line, lessening the minutes and putting him on the second power play unit, kind of doing with Zetterberg what the Vancouver did with the Sedins this year.
Yep. Ryan, Zetterberg to the second line?
I don't mind it because I think Larkin established himself as that 1C this year. Does he need a supporting cast a little bit more? Yeah, Mantha needs to take up an additional role and really start getting the dominant force that he's expecting of himself, no less.
Yeah.
I don't have the reason I'm okay with him as a second line guy is what else do they got there right now? Chalowski's coming in as a center, but is he going to start there?
Rasmussen's coming in as a center.
I'm sorry, Rasmussen, not Chalowski. I'm sorry. But is he going to make that jump? And look how much of a adjustment period it was for Larkin to finally get settled into that role.
Yeah.
outside of that, Anthony Siu, if he even if they're bringing him back, I would assume they attempt to, and he doesn't really have much weight to go off to demand money. But I think I kind of like what you mentioned there, Tyler, about putting him into a wing position, so he's not as much of a
liability
because he's obviously gotten slower out there. But I think him in a second line center role still isn't the worst thing, because he can still make the plays that you would expect of him, even with his age. And as long as his body can keep up with him, it's not that bad. But we'll see how this year goes, especially at the start of the season. This offseason is going to be pretty vital for him and how he can stay in conditioning and stay in good shape to actually be that role.
Yeah, I think they said next season, if Rasmussen comes in, they'll play him at the wing. That's what he's playing right now with the Tri-City Americans, and he's absolutely blowing up the playoffs. Like, Michael Rasmussen owns the playoffs. That's what's happening right now. But if they bring him in as a wing to start off like they did with Larkin, I think if you put Rasmussen on a wing with Zetterberg on the second line, perfect. Give him some of the best opportunity to get better, to play with leadership, to play with a solid person that can probably make up for some of your defensive mistakes, because Zetterberg is probably the best two-way forward on the team.
Yeah, so, I believe in Jeff Blashill giving a guy like Rasmussen, who's never played in the National Hockey League, an opportunity of, playing on the second line. And if he doesn't do well in like the first period or something, then, Jeff Blashill's the type of guy that's going to kick him to the fourth line.
Yeah, but I think Blashill's also going to be this is last year. He's playing for a contract. He's on the hot seat. And like I said, Chris Ilitch seemed not so happy in some of his body language and kind of sideways word structure that he used in some of his sentences. I think that they're both got to embrace the play kids movement and play them where you need to play them.
So you think that mandate's coming from ownership now?
Yeah, I think so. If you were ownership and you saw someone actively declining your once dynasty, you'd be kind of pissed off too. So I think he's taking the reins, and some of that direction is going to come from up top.
I agree. I think that if you see a guy like Eriksson get bought out, that will be a good first step in the direction of playing kids. And it's probably going to be high draft picks for 3 or 4 years. But you know what? That's how you win in this NHL. I'm not saying tank. I'm just saying that play kids, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah,
honestly,
give them experience.
There are a couple players. Look how many 1-goal games they had that they couldn't hold on to and win, and how many games went to overtime. That little difference is what makes them a playoff contender and not where they were now.
Yeah. So we got 2 more questions from Facebook before we move on to Twitter. From Jason Dreyfus, he asks, "Why are our special teams so bad?"
Torchetti.
Well, I guess the scapegoat has become Torchetti, who is the only assistant coach that the Detroit Red Wings fired. He was a special teams coach, so if you want to blame someone, blame the guy that got fired. I don't see why not. The reason that I feel like their power play has been kind of not great is because you see a lot of the same thing over and over again. Every other team knows what the Red Wings do on the power play. They try to break right down the center, or they pass it to a wall. They do a bunch of wall play until it's dug out and it gets iced back down. So they're very repeatable. They're very predictable. You know exactly what they're going to do, and it doesn't work. So maybe the new person that comes in, I don't know who they're going to try and hire, will fix that. Tyler, what do you think about the special teams? Why are they so terrible?
Yeah, special teams, pretty much. If you've watched these playoffs at all, special teams defines if you're a good team or a bad team. If you take a lot of penalties, your penalty kill is not going to be good. That's just really what it comes down to. Your power play, that's huge, right? You score a power play goal a game, or a power play goal every other game, you're probably going to have at least 2 or 3 goals a game. You
win those 1-goal games.
Goals, you probably win in the National Hockey League, especially with Jimmy Howard in net. That really separates the good teams from the great teams, the teams that have good power plays and good penalty kills. Why? Because the skill that they have is just not good enough. And the system's not great either. But Zetterberg's old. And then, you know, you got guys like Abdulkader, who he should probably be on the second power play unit, if at all. And, you know, you're giving Nick Cronwall power play time on the first unit. Like, they're not good enough. That's what it comes down to. They don't have enough impact players, and that's what it comes down to, really.
Ryan, you kind of chimed in a little bit. Why does our special team suck?
I just think there's no creativity. Like you watch a team like a Pittsburgh and the Washington Capitals. I'm going to be biased toward the East here, and then also the Blue Jackets. Look at the way they move the puck in comparison to how Detroit failed to move the puck when it came to their power play. Now, granted, all those teams I just mentioned, they have true all-stars and true superstars on their team. Detroit has lost all of theirs. However, you don't need to have the greatest players to just move the damn puck and create opportunities in space. Detroit didn't do that. And I think that was what kind of led to the demise of Torchetti. I mean, we haven't seen a solid power play or penalty kill since Babcock left, mainly because, for one, he stole all the assistants away. But two, it's just the players have just gotten worse. That's what I think. The creativity just wasn't there. And for some reason or another, the coaching staff hasn't been able to truly break the players out of their slump, essentially. And that's what killed them. And like you mentioned with the 1-goal games, one more power play goal a game puts them over that hump, and they're winning. Yep. And they're probably playing right now on TV, and we're not watching freaking Pittsburgh beat up on Philly. So that's just kind of.
I think that's a little subjective. We get swept in the first round, but
exactly. But either way, it's that little bit of a difference of puck movement to me. Like, you would look at the old. I'm going back now. Of watch these old Red Wings teams, how well they move the puck, even when they weren't on the power play. They don't have that, and on the power play, they need that, and that killed them.
Yeah, it got very stale. What the Red Wings did, stale and repeatable, and when that happens, teams know what you're going to do. They're prepared for it, and they'll stop you before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big problem. Is we got stopped before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So our next question and our last Facebook question comes from Brad Kauser. It is, will Detroit sign a goalie in this offseason? And Ryan, we'll go back to you. Will Detroit sign a goalie?
They have to. That's no doubt about it. They're going to have to. I don't think Jared Coro, if they re-sign him, it's to an AHL deal. It'll be one of those 2 ways that he's going to be the emergencies. He's going to probably fit that exact same role. Greg, who was it we were talking about we could see them going after?
Was it Hutton?
St. Louis. Yeah, Hutton. I could see them going after a guy like that. I know there's a few pending free agents that are going to be decently named that have had a good career. They can maybe sign them to one of those backup type roles and bring them in like an old Jonas Gustafsson. But to me, they're absolutely going to have to sign someone that is not a part of this organization, because the guys they've drafted aren't ready. And we have not seen Coro step up like the way we thought he was going to. And frickin' who else was down there right now? Oh my God,
McCollum.
Tom McCollum. How long has he been around? He's the same spot as.
Yeah, he was here and then he was gone and then he's back again. So
we've got 2 of the same type of player at Grand Rapids, and no true NHL backup or contender for an NHL starting job. So they have
right
to.
now. Yeah. No, I looked at Carter Hutton had some statements saying that he wanted to be the 1A in a 1A, 1B situation. So I think that would be the perfect opportunity, would be if you brought in Hutton and wanted to move Jimmy Howard to a backup role, or 1A, 1B platoon them, because Jimmy's getting a little older. I mean, he's what, 34?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hutton is 32, I believe. So he's only a couple years younger, but you only need him for a few years until one of our goalies develops or we draft a super stud goalie or whatever. So I think Hutton would be a good opportunity for a 1A, 1B situation with Jimmy Howard. Tyler, what do you think about signing a goalie in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to. I mean, Jared Coro, every time he's gone out there, has been miserable. So, and then the young kids aren't ready to go, and Tommy McCollum is an AHL backup at best.
Yeah.
So, and that's not to take anything away from Tommy McCollum, but that's the situation they're in. They're going to have to go out and they're going to have to spend money on a free agent. It's not going to be a lot. Or they can make a trade for a younger guy, and maybe they can, make a trade for somebody. I can't think of somebody off the top of my head, but like a Vasilevsky Bishop situation where you had to trade for one of those guys. So I don't know if they can identify a good backup goalie, maybe Malcolm Subban or something from Vegas, or I don't know.
Vegas has plenty of goalies. You can get Oscar Dance from Vegas. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they can identify a team like Vegas or a team like Nashville that has some goaltending depth, and see if they can, instead of signing a journeyman goalie, they can get somebody that could be the future, or the immediate future.
Yep.
Although I feel like Vegas Golden Knights will never do a deal with Ken Holland ever again because they trade a first, a second, and a third for Tatar, and then he gets scratched. He's watching the game from the press box. So that's a little insane when you give up that much to get that little. So I don't think. I mean, they've got Oscar Dance, they've got Maxime Legacy, they've got Malcolm Subban, they've got plenty of
Peter
goalies.
Mrazek's an option. Make no mistake.
I don't think so.
I think he is.
I don't know.
If they bring him back for $1.5 million, I'd say yes.
I don't even think it would be that. I think it'd $9.25 or something.
No, there's no way he'd take it. He'll go play overseas before he takes that low of a contract.
Yep,
that's true. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
we'll move on. We'll move on to our Twitter questions, and the first one comes from the much beloved Tess at TM Dudley XO. She says. Her question is changing up the assistants going to benefit Blashill, or are we just still screwed like always? So I will let you start with that, Ryan.
That is a damn hard question to answer right now. Only because I don't really know what different assistants and schemes and possibilities they could have had if there was somebody else. With the roster they currently have, there's potential, and we've seen it a couple different times this year where they just can dominate a team like Pittsburgh at the end of the year. But is that coaching or is that the players? I think a change of scenery for some of the assistants will be good, but if they have another awful year, Blashill's gone, and then their assistants are changing anyway. So I don't know if it's so much on the assistants or necessarily the personnel that's being deployed by those assistants. So I think a change will be good. I just hope that with what they get, this draft, again, is going to be huge, and so is going to be the free agency period of what they decide to do or not do, which I would hope. So to me, it's a coin flip.
Yeah. Tyler, what do you think about the assistant coaching? Do you think it'll help Blashill, or do you think it's not going to make much of a big deal?
Well, excuse me, it depends on who they hire. First of all, we just have to say we're going to miss Tess. She's not going to be part of us anymore. Wish her the best on anything she ended up doing. But yeah, I mean, it depends on who they hire. If they hire someone like I forget the guy's name, but the guy that went to Toronto with Babcock when he left, they hire someone like that. Was it Rennie? Who was that? Anyways, if they hire someone that's been in the league for a while, and you can almost use it like a bench coach in baseball, where that older guy is kind of overseeing what the head coach is doing, then it'll be good. Otherwise, I mean, we're just gonna be screwed as always, like she said.
Yeah, I think that a smart thing, and I saw this idea floated around, was Blashill only has a year left. Why don't you try and sign a guy to an assistant position that if Blashill doesn't work out, you can promote him to head coach?
Alain Vigneault.
Yeah, except for Alain Vigneault.
Okay.
But it's
Bill Peters would be interesting.
Yeah, Bill Peters would be interesting. Bill Peters never had a ton of talent to work with, and him getting fired is kind of just part of the job because he's part of a team that's. Or no, Bill Peters didn't get fired.
He's not fired. They just gave him the opportunity to look around. They gave him
the option to move. Yeah. So I think that if you could bring in someone like that as an assistant and say, hey, if Blashill isn't here, he's in his last year of his contract, would you be okay with staying an assistant and then maybe possibly moving up. So I think it's a good option, and you've got options. So it could help depending on who it is that they would pick up.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is from Adam Flett, which is at ADMFLET. Who would you draft, and do you take need or best available? So say the Red Wings, and for this example, I guess we're going to go down the line as if the draft happened exactly in order and the Red Wings are picking at 5th. Who do you take at 5th in the draft, Tyler?
If Philip Sedin is still there, I take him. At 5, if he's gone, Quinn Hughes. I take Quinn Hughes.
Do you only take Quinn Hughes because he went to Michigan?
No, because he's a defenseman and I like his game.
Okay. You don't think he's kind of small?
I do think he's kind of small, but so is Torrey Krug, and Torrey Krug's an impact defenseman.
Okay. Ryan, who do you take at 5?
I think I've kind of hammered it home that I go best available at this point. If I'm going to look at someone in particular, it really depends on who's available. If Quinn Hughes goes before that, I don't necessarily think it will. I could see him going. If not, depending on if he may drop, I could see a Brady Tkachuk or a Boquist. I kind of think the Wings are going to be between Boquist and Hughes possibly, but I also like Oliver Wahlstrom. I got to watch him here in Plymouth, and that dude he's a beast on the ice. So he'd be a fun one to have in Detroit because they're starting to buff up on wing, and I like it. Granted, they still need that center help, which I could see them going that path as well. But I think if you look at those couple options of defense, that'll likely still be there. For what they've got in the system, those guys could possibly make an impact right out the gate. And I think you kind of have to pull the trigger because if they buy out Eriksson, boom, there's one spot. It's likely going to Hickett's Hronek. But if you make another trade on a guy like Ouellette, Jensen, DeKaiser, get a couple of those guys out of town, you get those defensemen making an impact right away. So I think that's where they go.
So what I take, and I would take best available because best available is going to be 6'2", 193-pound London Knight Evan Bouchard. The dude is a boss. He is such a big dude. He is a smooth skater. He has an awesome pass. I think he goes before Hughes, and I think that's who the Red Wings would be looking at if that's where they picked, would be number 5 in the draft. And best available around that position is going to be defense. If you pick in the top 3, if you don't pick number 1 and you're in the top 3, best available is offense. After 3, your best available is most likely defense. And that's not bad because the top 10 players are great players and your top 10 is mostly defense. So
we also
it's really
talk
good.
About Noah Dobson. That's another one. There's so many top defenders that we could go for. Yeah,
Noah Dobson's ranked right after Bouchard on US skaters. So he would be 6 or 7 in the top 10. So our last question of the night, and we're coming in right in on time. This is pretty good. On Twitter from Thomas Parks, which is at Parks THMS1, says, let's say the Wings fall to the 5 to 7 slot, and we're going to have our defensive battle here. Hughes, Bouchard, or Boquist? And Tyler already knows Tyler already picks Hughes.
I think we lost Tyler here.
Yeah, Ryan, who are you picking, though? Between
who? One more time?
Between Hughes. Who do you pick between Hughes, Boquist, or Bouchard?
Man. I absolutely have to give an answer here, don't I?
Yep.
I hope. I don't know. You kind of had me sold on Bouchard a little bit here. Boquist I could see because of that Swedish connection, and they just still love their Swedes. Hughes, because of the way he plays, they know what they're going to get from a guy that came from Michigan, a la Larkin. And also, you just look at other top-end draft picks from Michigan over the last several years, and they're all playing heavy games in the NHL. But I think they go for a little more size. I like what you said with Bouchard and what they could do with him. He can control play. He's a top-scoring guy, but he's got that size to throw his body around. kind of reminds me with his size comparisons to Seth Jones, or in that sense, with what he can do with the puck and then with his body. So I think I could see him doing that as well.
Tyler.
Yes, I don't know what the hell happened, but I'm back.
All right, so I'm going to cut this middle part, but I'm going to go right like you never left. So, Tyler, we all know who you pick. You, of course, between Hughes, Bouchard, and Boquist, you would take Quinn Hughes. Can you give us a little of why you would take him above Bouchard and Boquist?
Okay, so Boquist I like. He's a little bit bigger than Quinn. Well, a lot bigger than Quinn Hughes. But like I said, I haven't seen a lot of Bouchard. I've seen a little bit of Boquist, and I've seen a whole lot of Quinn Hughes. So, I mean, like I said, Quinn Hughes is a guy that can run a power play. He's a guy that, he's dynamic offensively. Probably needs a lot of work defensively, especially at the NHL level. But, I mean, these teams, end up getting these guys from college, and some of them end up playing at the NHL level right away, and some of them don't. I mean, I think Hughes would be a guy that, like I said, he could slot right in on that second pair at some point, not right now. And then he'd also be able to run your power play, and then you'd be able to put him on the first pair, probably with a shutdown guy, because he's not going to be your shutdown guy. So, like I said, that's why I would take Hughes.
All right, so I would take Bouchard. Simply for size. Now, an interesting thing that I looked at, like we said, the Central Scout rankings came out. Adam Boquist is the second-ranked European skater in the draft, number 2, right behind Rasmus Dahlin. Though at the midterms, he was at 2, and his final ranking was a 2. Now, what's interesting is Evan Bouchard's midterm ranking was a 5, and his final ranking became a 4. Quinn Hughes' midterm ranking was a 4 for North American skaters. His final ranking is 6. So Dobson actually slots in above Hughes currently in the final rankings for North American prospects. I take Bouchard just because I think his frame is good enough to come into the NHL next season if needed. As where I think Quinn Hughes would need some time in the AHL to put some weight on, because he's a little light. He's 170 compared to Bouchard's 193. If you're going with Boquist only weighed 68 pounds. I mean, he's gonna have to go on the rock diet to have any weight put onto him. So I'd take Bouchard. But that ends it actually for our mailbag, and we'd like to thank everybody for your input and your questions. We love doing these mailbags. We love kind of getting the questions that the community is looking at, and we're super happy to answer them anytime you got them. But Tyler, I'm gonna let you take us out.
You don't have any final thoughts?
My final thought is you can follow me on Twitter at Bringing the Wing, and that I am super happy that Tyler is super pissed off that the Vegas Golden Knights swept the LA Kings.
You had to bring that up at the end, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, because we don't have any time for you to rant about it. Ryan, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at RD Ryan 33.
Sweet.
The last thing I'll say is, as much as I don't like people going on the bandwagons like that, it's fine, because it is good for the game of hockey, and I'm all for what grows the game of hockey in the United States. Because, like I said, I grew up playing hockey. A lot of people that I know grew up playing hockey, and it's just one of those sports where, like, it's kind of like a big extended family, and you kind of seen that, with the Humboldt Broncos thing that happened there. Yeah. And it's just like, if you can give your kid an opportunity to play hockey, you get friends that last a lifetime, and stuff like that. So, like, it is good to grow the game of hockey in the United States. So for that reason, like I said, I mean, I'm not happy that my boy Kopitar's out and Doughty's out, but I mean, it's good for the Vegas Golden Knights. The last thing I'll say, and we'll take us out after that, and this is a big if, the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup, this is the biggest story in the history of hockey, bigger than Miracle on Ice, bigger than anything like that. A team that was put together in the summertime wins the Stanley Cup. Just, there's no comparison. That's the biggest story of all time. Any comments?
No, I agree, 100%. It'll be one of the biggest sports stories, period,
ever.
Yep.
And everyone would be cheering them on.
Yep.
I mean, at that point, I have
Everyone
to.
will be cheering them on. Tyler will be silently clapping in a corner somewhere, like all sad looking.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just a little salty that they beat LA. I don't really care what happens now. I mean, they're probably going to beat San Jose or Anaheim or whoever it ends up being. And then
if you're listening to this after you heard Tyler say those sentences, go on Twitter and look at his previous tweets about Vegas and just compare him to what he just said. Because that's hilarious.
I had time to cool down. So, I mean, usually when I tweet and go on rants like that, it's because, I'm salty.
You are hot.
But, and this is a big but, I don't think they would get past a team like Winnipeg or a team like Nashville. And
I think Winnipeg.
I'll end it.
I think Winnipeg would be their hardest time. But take us out, Tyler. We're running out of time.
So, anyways, you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91. Yes, I changed it again. You can follow the Winged Octopus on Twitter at Winged Octopus. You can also like us on Facebook and also subscribe to us on Instagram as well. And then you can also find our podcast on Podbean. What is it? Spotify now.
Spotify and iTunes.
You got Google Play. You got everything. So, yeah, subscribe. So, anyways, for that, I'm Tyler, Greg, and Ryan. Have a good night, guys. We good?